Ladies and gentlemen, we live in an era where hustle is glorified, where staying busy is often mistaken for being productive, and where rest is seen as a weakness rather than wisdom. But let me tell you something powerful. It is in rest that true strength is born. Think of the beginning of any journey, whether it's building a business, starting a workout routine, or even pursuing personal growth. The natural urge is to charge ahead at full speed, to prove our commitment by relentless action. Yet the reality is this: without initial rest, without pausing to prepare to recover, and to align ourselves, we risk burning out before we even begin. Rest is not laziness. Rest is not surrender. Rest is the foundation of sustainable action. Just as the seed must stay buried in silence before it breaks into a sprout, just as muscles must recover after strain to grow stronger, so too must our minds and spirits embrace the quiet power of rest before they can rise into greatness. Think of a bow and arrow. The arrow does not fly because it is constantly pushed forward. It flies because it is drawn back first. That backward pull, that pause, that moment of stillness is what gives it force. Similarly, our initial rest is not wasted time. It is the force that fuels our launch. Athletes know this. Before running a marathon, the body needs recovery, sleep, and mental calm. Writers know this. Before writing a masterpiece, the mind needs reflection and silence. Leaders know this. Before making critical decisions, wisdom comes from stepping back and pausing. The silent power of initial rest teaches us three truths. Clarity is born in stillness. When we rest before we act, our minds filter noise and reveal direction. Energy is preserved for impact. Rest charges our body and mind to move with strength, not exhaustion. Discipline is deepened through balance. True discipline is not endless motion. It is knowing when to pause and when to act. So, my friends, do not fear rest. Embrace it as your ally. Before you launch your dreams, before you chase your goals, before you take on the weight of the world, allow yourself the gift of initial rest. Because in that silence, you will find strength. In that pause, you will find clarity. And in that rest, you will find the unstoppable power to rise, not as someone rushing blindly, but as someone who moves with purpose, balance, and unstoppable force. The silent power of initial rest is not a delay. It is your secret weapon. Use it wisely, and the world will witness how far and how powerfully you can go. Thank you. Rest is the foundation, not a weakness in the fast-paced culture we live in today. Rest has been wrongly labeled as laziness. We are constantly bombarded with slogans like "sleep when you're dead," "the grind never stops," and "hustle harder." While these phrases may sound motivating, they are deeply misleading. They glorify exhaustion and dismiss one of the most essential ingredients for long-term success: rest. Let me make something clear. Rest is not weakness. Rest is the foundation of everything strong, sustainable, and truly impactful. Think about it. No building can stand tall without a foundation. The tallest skyscrapers in the world are not built on shaky soil, but on solid, deeply rooted bases. Without that foundation, the structure will collapse under its own weight. In the same way, your personal journey, whether it's a career, a dream, or self-growth, cannot last if it is not grounded in proper rest and recovery. Action without rest is like a skyscraper built on sand. It might look impressive for a moment, but it cannot stand the test of time. When we rest, we give ourselves more than sleep. We give ourselves clarity, energy, and balance. A tired mind makes rash decisions. A drained body cannot perform at its best. A restless soul struggles to stay inspired. But a rested person is sharp, focused, and capable of sustaining high performance over time. Rest equips us not only to do more, but also to do better. Let's look at the science for a moment. Research consistently shows that sleep and rest improve memory, problem solving, and creativity. Athletes know that muscles don't grow during training. They grow during recovery. Similarly, our potential doesn't expand only in the hours we are grinding. It expands in the hours we are recharging. Without that downtime, we are not building, we are merely depleting. Yet despite this truth, society often pushes us toward endless motion. We compare ourselves to others on social media, we measure productivity by busyness, and we wear fatigue as if it were a badge of honor. But ask yourself, is collapsing from burnout really something to be proud of? Is living in constant exhaustion proof of greatness, or is it simply proof that we are ignoring the wisdom of rest? Consider nature. Even the mightiest of rivers have moments of stillness, and even the most fruitful trees shed their leaves and pause in winter. Seasons of rest are built into creation itself. If nature pauses, if the earth itself embraces cycles of work and rest, then why do we humans resist it? Why do we think we can thrive without it? Rest, my friends, is not a detour from the path to success. It is part of the path itself. When you rest at the beginning of your journey, you are not falling behind. You are preparing yourself to go further. Rest gives you perspective before you begin, so you don't waste time running in the wrong direction. Rest gives you calm before the storm, so you can face challenges with composure instead of chaos. Rest gives you stability, so when life tests you, you don't crumble. So let us reframe our understanding of rest. Instead of seeing it as weakness, let us honor it as strength. Instead of treating it as wasted time, let us view it as invested time, because in truth, rest is not the opposite of progress. It is the soil from which progress grows. The strongest minds, the greatest leaders, and the most successful individuals all recognize this. Before you act, you must align. Before you move, you must rest. Rest is the silent power that makes action meaningful. Rest is not weakness. It is the very foundation of your strength. The bow and arrow principle, there is a powerful lesson in one of the simplest objects, a bow and arrow. When you watch an archer prepare to shoot, it almost seems counterintuitive. The arrow does not move forward immediately. Instead, it is pulled backward. The more it is drawn back, the more potential energy builds within it, and when released, that backward motion transforms into forward momentum, launching the arrow with speed, power, and precision. This is not just a law of archery, it is a law of life. Initial rest is like that backward pull. At first, it feels like nothing is happening. To the outside world, it may even look like delay. But in reality, rest is where you gather force, where you align your aim, and where you store the energy needed to move powerfully toward your target. Without the backward pull, the arrow falls flat. Without rest, your efforts lack force. Too often, people fear pauses. They believe that if they are not in constant motion, they are falling behind. In truth, moving without purpose is worse than standing still. Imagine an arrow that is released without being pulled back, it drops at your feet. Similarly, rushing into action without the strength of rest leaves you drained, scattered, and ineffective. It is not speed that matters most, but strength and direction. And rest gives you both. Think about history's greatest achievers. Athletes preparing for Olympic glory don't simply train harder and harder without stopping. They carefully balance training with recovery because they know that rest is where strength is built. Leaders, before making critical decisions, don't rush blindly. They pause, reflect, and weigh their options. Writers, artists, and thinkers step away from their work to recharge, allowing clarity and creativity to flow when they return. They understand the bow and arrow principle: backward pause, forward power. Rest is not about quitting or losing momentum. It is about timing. An archer who releases too soon will miss the target. One who takes time to pull back fully will send the arrow flying with accuracy. Life is no different. If you rush prematurely, you may waste energy chasing the wrong opportunities. But if you pause, align your vision, and build your strength, your actions will strike with impact. Let me share a practical example. Picture a student preparing for exams. One student studies endlessly, sleeping little, pushing themselves nonstop. Another studies with discipline, but also rests intentionally, taking breaks, sleeping properly, and recharging their mind. When the day of the exam arrives, who performs better, not the one who burned out in endless motion, but the one who embraced the bow and arrow principle? Rest, recharge, release. The same applies to entrepreneurs, creators, or anyone chasing a goal. Without rest, you might push forward quickly but run out of energy halfway. With rest, you conserve strength, so when it's time to release, your impact is sustained and powerful. And here's the beauty of the bow and arrow principle. The farther back you pull, the stronger the launch. The deeper the rest, the greater the energy it gives. This is why periods of silence, retreat, and pause in life are not wasted time. They are investments. They are the invisible work that prepares you for visible success. So, the next time you feel guilty for resting, remember the archer. Remember that stepping back is not losing ground. It is gaining strength. Remember that silence is not absence. It is preparation. And remember that the backward pull of rest is not weakness. It is the very reason your arrow will fly. The bow and arrow principle teaches us that rest is not a delay on the path to success. It is the secret behind the speed, accuracy, and power of your journey. Without it, you stumble. With it, you soar. Rest creates clarity of vision in the rush of modern life. It is easy to confuse constant motion with progress. We wake up, we hustle, we chase tasks from dawn to midnight, believing that if we just keep moving, we will eventually arrive somewhere meaningful. But here's the truth: movement without clarity is simply chaos. Running faster in the wrong direction only takes you further away from your destination. And this is where rest becomes your greatest ally, because rest creates clarity of vision. Have you ever looked into still water? When the water is turbulent, the reflection is distorted, unclear, impossible to recognize. But when the water is calm, it mirrors reality perfectly. The same is true of the human mind. When you are restless, fatigued, and constantly rushing, your vision is blurred. You cannot see your priorities, your values, or even your path forward. But when you allow yourself to rest, mentally, emotionally, and physically, the turbulence settles and clarity emerges. Rest is the stillness that allows you to see yourself and your goals clearly. Clarity is not born from noise. It is born from silence. Some of the greatest breakthroughs in history did not come in moments of frantic action, but in periods of pause and reflection. Sir Isaac Newton discovered the law of gravity while sitting under a tree. Archimedes shouted Eureka while resting in a bath. Countless innovators, writers, and leaders found their most profound ideas not in chaos, but in moments of quiet. Rest sharpens the mind, allowing insights to surface that endless activity would have buried. Think about it in practical terms. A student who studies all night without sleeping may feel productive, but by morning their brain is foggy, their memory is weak, and their judgment is impaired. In contrast, a student who rests properly before an exam wakes with a sharp mind, clear focus, and the ability to recall information accurately. The difference is not in who worked harder, but in who valued clarity. The same principle applies to every pursuit in life. Without rest, you may confuse busyness with productivity. With rest, you gain perspective, prioritize wisely, and make decisions that align with your true goals. Rest also helps you separate the urgent from the important. In the noise of daily life, we often chase distractions disguised as necessities. Emails, notifications, tasks that demand attention but add no value to our vision. When you pause and rest, you step back and ask yourself, what truly matters? Where am I really heading? Rest gives you the space to examine your direction, not just your speed. Leaders understand this deeply. The most effective leaders are not those who make the quickest decisions, but those who make the wisest decisions. And wisdom comes from reflection, not reaction. They take time to step back, to pause, and to see the bigger picture. That pause is rest in action. That silence is clarity in creation. Rest also restores emotional clarity. When you are exhausted, small problems feel overwhelming and challenges look impossible. Fatigue magnifies negativity. But when you rest, perspective shifts. What once felt like a mountain looks like a manageable hill. Rest resets not just your body but your emotions, allowing you to face difficulties with balance instead of panic. So if you feel lost, overwhelmed, or uncertain about your path, the solution is not to speed up. It is to slow down, give yourself the gift of rest, create moments of silence in your day, step away from the noise, and allow your mind to breathe. Because in that stillness, clarity will rise. Remember this, rest is not the enemy of vision. It is the birthplace of vision. It is in the pause that you see the bigger picture. It is in silence that you hear the whispers of your true purpose. And it is in clarity that you find the direction that endless motion could never give. So rest, not because you are weak, but because you are wise. Rest to see clearly, so when you move forward, you move with confidence, focus, and vision. Energy is preserved for impact. We often admire those who appear to work endlessly, those who grind through the night, those who wear exhaustion like a badge of honor. But here's the truth. It is not the person who expends the most energy who succeeds, but the one who manages energy wisely. Greatness is not built on empty fuel tanks. True impact is born from conserving, restoring, and then releasing energy at the right time. That is why rest is not a luxury. It is a necessity. Rest preserves your energy so that when the moment comes, you can act with power instead of stumbling with exhaustion. Think of an athlete. Training is essential, but recovery is where the magic happens. Muscles don't grow stronger during the workout, they grow stronger during rest. The workout tears the fibers, but rest rebuilds them thicker and tougher. Without recovery, training becomes self-destruction. The same principle applies to your mind, your career, and your dreams. You may push yourself hard, but if you never pause to recharge, you are not becoming stronger. You are simply wearing yourself out. Energy is a finite resource. No matter how motivated you are, your body and mind have limits. If you run endlessly without rest, your performance declines. Decision making becomes sloppy, creativity diminishes, and mistakes multiply. But when you rest, you renew your energy, you restore clarity, you return stronger. That renewal is what allows you to show up at your best when it matters most. Let's use another example, a smartphone. No matter how advanced or powerful, if you don't recharge it, it will eventually shut down. Imagine trying to run your entire life on a phone that's always at 5% battery, stressed, drained, and constantly about to die. Yet this is how many people live. They drain themselves daily, never stopping to recharge, and then wonder why their results are weak. Rest is your charger. It doesn't make you less productive. It ensures you actually have the power to function when you need it. Great leaders, athletes, and creators understand this. They do not measure success by how many hours they work, but by how much impact they create in those hours. And impact is impossible without energy. Serena Williams, for example, doesn't play championship tennis matches 7 days a week. She rests, she conserves, and she prepares. So, when she steps onto the court, her energy is focused and explosive. The same principle applies to CEO, innovators, and performers. Their power lies not in endless motion, but in preserved energy used at the right time. There is also a spiritual dimension to this. Rest renews not only the body but also the soul. It reconnects you to purpose. It reminds you why you began. Fatigue makes you forget your vision. Rest restores it. Burnout makes you question your path. Rest gives you the strength to continue walking it. Preserved energy is not just physical. It is mental, emotional, and spiritual. When you rest before acting, you give yourself the chance to align your energy with your goals. Instead of rushing blindly and wasting effort on distractions, you act with precision. Think of it like a laser beam. A scattered light bulb spreads energy everywhere but has little impact. A focused laser, however, cuts through steel. Rest focuses your energy, so when you move, you are unstoppable. So here is the truth. Exhaustion is not a trophy, and burnout is not an accomplishment. They are warning signs that you are mismanaging your greatest resource, your energy. Success is not about doing the most. It is about doing what matters with strength, clarity, and focus. And that requires rest. Preserve your energy, recharge before you act, because when you step into the arena of life, the world doesn't reward you for how tired you are. It rewards you for how impactful you are. And that impact comes from the power that only rest can provide. The discipline of balance. When people hear the word discipline, they often picture relentless effort, strict routines, and unbroken chains of hard work. Discipline is imagined as an iron will that never bends, never pauses, and never takes a break. But this view is incomplete. True discipline is not just about constant motion. It is about knowing when to pause and when to push. It is about balance, and without balance, even the strongest willpower eventually collapses. Think of a tightrope walker. Their success does not come from running quickly across the rope, but from maintaining balance every step of the way. Too much weight to one side and they fall. Too much rush and they stumble. Their art lies in mastering the rhythm of movement and stillness, action and adjustment. Life is no different. If you lean too heavily on work without rest, you burn out. If you lean too heavily on rest without work, you stagnate. Balance is the discipline that keeps you walking forward without falling. Many people mistakenly believe that stopping to rest is a sign of weakness. They think, if I slow down, I'll lose momentum. If I pause, I'll fall behind. But the opposite is true. Pausing to rest does not erase discipline. It strengthens it. It requires great discipline to step away, to say no to overwork, to honor your body's needs, and to prepare yourself for the long journey. Anyone can push themselves recklessly for a short time, but only the disciplined can balance effort with rest and sustain progress for years. Balance also teaches patience. In a world addicted to speed, patience is rare. Everyone wants instant result. Overnight success, immediate growth, quick wins. But balance reminds us that meaningful progress takes time. Just as the farmer must let the soil rest between seasons for it to remain fertile, we too must respect the rhythm of action and recovery. Without this rhythm, our growth will be shallow and short-lived. With it, our success becomes deep-rooted and sustainable. Consider some of the greatest performers in history. Elite athletes do not train every hour of every day. They schedule rest days with as much discipline as their training sessions. Why? Because they understand that balance between work and recovery is what keeps them at peak performance. Entrepreneurs, too, who last in the business world are not those who sprint recklessly until they collapse, but those who pace themselves, rest strategically, and maintain balance over decades. The most successful people are not those who never stop, but those who know when to stop. Balance also shapes mental discipline. When we rest, we regain perspective. We avoid emotional extremes. We develop the strength to make choices not from panic or fatigue, but from clarity. Balance allows us to say, I will rest now so that I can rise stronger later. That self-control, choosing rest when the world tells you to keep grinding, is one of the highest forms of discipline. Here's another way to think about it. Imagine running a marathon. The one who starts at full speed without pacing, without balancing effort and energy, will collapse halfway. But the runner who respects the rhythm of effort and recovery, who drinks water, breathes steadily, and conserves strength, will finish the race. Life is not a sprint. It is a marathon. And discipline without balance will not take you to the finish line. So let us redefine discipline. It is not the endless grind. It is not the stubborn refusal to pause. Discipline is the art of balance, the wisdom to act when it's time to act and to rest when it's time to rest. Balance makes your discipline sustainable. Balance makes your success meaningful. Balance transforms fleeting effort into lasting achievement. In the end, discipline without balance leads to burnout, but discipline with balance leads to mastery. And mastery is not about speed or exhaustion. It is about endurance, wisdom, and strength that lasts. That is why the discipline of balance is not just a principle to follow. It is the very heartbeat of greatness.